Hello and welcome and a very good evening. You're watching Blueprint Explosive Exclusive with me, Siddhartha Talya. The war in Iran has now, in the Middle East, has entered a dangerous phase after missiles had managed to strike several parts of the Middle East, and of course targeted strikes also continue in the part of the United States as well as Israel on Iran. There's also, of course, been a chokehold on the oil trade. This entire conflict has now reached big tech as well, and the clock is ticking for the American President Donald Trump as the IRGC's warning to attack America-based firms situated now in the Gulf is set to end in just a few hours from now. We're speaking almost 3.5 hours to go before that happens. The Revolutionary Guard Corps in Iran, in a clear and categorical statement, has issued a warning to target 18 America and American-linked companies. It has threatened major US tech and aerospace firms to evacuate their offices in the Gulf region, as according to Iran, these companies are now legitimate targets because they're responsible, quote unquote, for high-tech warfare that has led to the termination of the country's leadership. Let's take a look at what the IRGC has decided to claim in that statement that it's made. That from 8 p.m. Tehran time, which is approximately 10 p.m. India time, firms are warned of targeted destruction. Retaliation has been promised for every assassination in Iran. Companies linked to terror designs will face action. This is the IRGC's warning. Advise all employees of these firms to leave their workplaces. Residents near company locations across region have been advised to evacuate. That's the claim coming from the IRGC. Let's also now take a look at which American companies are on Iran's target. The target list includes, of course, Apple, Google, Microsoft, Meta Platforms, IBM, Dell Technologies, Palantir, Nvidia, JP Morgan, Cisco, Intel, Oracle, Hewlett-Packard, Tesla, Boeing, General Electric, Power Solutions, and G42. But if a deal is not reached within the given time frame, which is 3.5 hours from now, and the Americans and the Israelis do not halt their attacks on Iran, the consequences, the IRGC claims, could be devastating. The impact will be felt across global trade, as these companies are worth trillions of dollars in terms of valuations and have operations in different parts of the world, not just in the Middle East. Let's also take a look at the estimated valuations of some of these companies. Of course, these claims and numbers keep fluctuating, but here's an indicative set of figures that we're bringing for you. Apple is approximately valued at about 3.73 trillion US dollars. Microsoft at 2.751 trillion US dollars. Alphabet or Google at 3.47 trillion dollars. Meta at 1.447 trillion dollars. Nvidia at about 4.2 trillion. Intel at about 221 billion. Oracle at 423 billion. Cisco at 306 billion. IBM at 227 billion. And so on and so forth. If you go all the way down to Tesla, it's almost $1.4 trillion, Boeing at $156 billion, among a whole host of others. But the American president, Donald Trump, does not seem to be too bothered about the trillions of dollars at stake. Because when he was asked about his response on Iran's threat, he said, what will they use? BB guns? Let's listen into Trump's dismissive response when asked that specific question.
What did they threaten them with? PB guns? Or
well, that's
they don't have much left to threaten. Tell me, how did they threaten them?
Well, all I know is that they threatened him, sir.
What does that mean?
Fair enough.
He said something nasty? You don't even know what the threat was. What was the threat? I haven't heard it. What was the threat? Did they say they're going to blow him up? They're going to hit him? They're not. You know what they're not going to do? They're not going to hit him with a nuclear weapon.
Now, this battlefield is no longer confined to geography. It's also expanding into cyberspace, into infrastructure and global business networks. From oil routes to office towers, the Iran war is pulling in everything that it can possibly reach. Now, there's also an important development now because President Donald Trump has made a fresh claim against Iran. He's, of course, expected to address America by around 6:30 a.m. tomorrow morning. But he's now claimed that Iran has begged for ceasefire, that Iran has asked the Americans for ceasefire. He's now laid down a condition saying that Iran should first open the Straits of Hormuz. There'll only be a ceasefire once Hormuz is free and clear. Otherwise, the Americans will continue to blast Iran. That's the threat that's come from Donald Trump. I'll just read out his exact tweet, his message on the social media. He says, Iran's new regime president, much less radicalized and far more intelligent than his predecessors, has just asked the United States of America for a ceasefire. We will consider when Hormuz Strait is open, free and clear. Until then, we are blasting Iran into oblivion, or as they say, back to the Stone Ages. That's the categorical threat that Donald Trump has issued. Let me go across to my colleague Rishabh for more on this. Rishabh, President Trump is expected to make an address at approximately 6:30 a.m. tomorrow our time, which is 9 p.m. America time. And many people were speculating that he could possibly talk about de-escalation or some kind of an exit strategy as far as this war is concerned. That may not be the case anymore, given the kind of threat he's now decided to issue Iran.
Well, so there are three things here. First, we'll have to wait for Iranian statement to actually corroborate with what Donald Trump is saying, because we live in times such where a U.S. president's statement needs backing from the other side for it to be authentic. A. B, there are factual confusion in this whole, post on social media platform Truth as well, where he says that the new president of the regime, there is no change in the president of the regime. Pezeshkian continues to be the president of Iran. The supreme leader has definitely changed, and by whatever the report suggests, by whatever one understand about Mujtaba Khamenei, he is much more radicalized than what Ali Khamenei would have ever been. So what Donald Trump is trying to suggest is something that is far from reality. Remains to be seen how things unfold, while Iran has now, and as you were putting out the last report itself, Iran is now preparing to hit the US IT firms in West Asia. This statement has come in. Remember, there's a statement that is expected to come in from Albanese. We're expecting a statement coming in from Keir Starmer. We're expecting a statement coming in from Merz from Germany. There's a CCS here in New Delhi as well, around 7 p.m. India time. And then there is a statement coming in from Donald Trump at 6:30 a.m. India time as well. So amid all this very statement coming in showcases that, somewhere down the line, Donald Trump is now looking forward to chicken out from this.
And we don't quite know who he was referring to when he speaks about the president of the new regime, because the regime still remains the same, and Mr. Pezeshkian still remains the president of Iran. So we'll wait and see as to how things unfold and what Trump has to say later in the day. Many thanks for that update that you've given us. Rishabh, let's take this across to our guests as well. We have Vibhuti Jha joining us, former Republican candidate for New York Assembly, and also Dr. Waiel Awwad, Middle East expert as well. We also have Yachneet Pushkarna, CEO of Haribol as well. Many thanks to all our guests for joining us. Mr. Vibhuti Jha, coming to you first and foremost, how do you read Donald Trump's statement? Because he's expected to address America at around 6:30 a.m. India time, which is early morning tomorrow for us, and 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. What can you tell us about what he's likely to say now? Because he's just decided to issue a threat to Iran's regime, saying that unless and until the Straits of Hormuz are completely open, we'll continue bombing Iran back to the Stone Ages. And there is a bit of ambiguity in his statement as well, for the simple reason that he refers to the president of the new regime of Iran. Now, so far as we know, the regime still remains under a so-called new supreme leader, and the president of Iran is still Mr. Pezeshkian. What's your reading of his statement, Mr. Jha?
Thank you very much for having me here. As you wait for 6:30 a.m. India time, I'm waiting for 12 more hours from now, as the clock would say. So there is a great anticipation here what Mr. Trump would do in his national address to the people. These are very significant moments because there is a decisive action conveyed. So my suspicion is that there are two requirements of this war: politics as usual, or something must change. So I think every panelist here, and you included, we are all sick and tired of politics as usual. So if you remember, Mr. Trump in his very first term had said that, why are we interfering in Middle East affairs when these people have been fighting their own internal struggle for thousands of years? Mm-hmm. They ask for our help, we go there for economic activities, and then they blame us as a foreign army, get out of the place. we expose ourselves. So he's very clear on that account. Second is the issue of NATO, for example.
Okay.
He's also sick and tired of America bearing the burden of NATO's so-called, what is called European problem. And the NATO has a problem, which I have always said many times. This is post-Second World War imperial tool of white only, Western European only, members only war club in the world. There is no such war club anywhere in the world. Trump is sick and tired of that, bearing the burden of that entire NATO. So he upped the thing to 2%. Now they upped it to 5%, and they're all doing it. Now they're not supporting.
All right.
Here in reference to Iran, there's a bigger matter here. What he's going to say, this is the final warning. America's original request was what? No nuclear weapon, no uranium enrichment. And if you want nuclear civil elements, we are willing to supply you any amount of time, any amount of it you want. And now the Hormuz is a after effect of war. So it has to happen, and the regime change has already happened in Iran. As you know, IRGC has taken over. So you are looking at an announcement of a defined dateline within which you confirm.
Okay, we'll wait and see. We'll wait and see as to what clearly he has to say, because as far as American objectives in this particular war is concerned, they've also shifted goalposts from time to time as well, and that lack of clarity has not helped anybody's case here. We'll come back to you, Mr. Jha, but let me take this across to Dr. Waiel Awwad as well. Dr. Awwad, what do you make of Iran's own ultimatum? Mr. Jha, of course, spoke about the deadline that Donald Trump has decided to impose upon Iran. But Iran has a deadline of its own, which is that within 3.5 hours, if American and Israeli hostilities do not cease, then Iran, or the IRGC in particular, would target American firms based out of the Middle East, which actually have valuations that are larger than the economies of several countries put together. What do you make of that threat coming from Iran, and do you actually expect Iran to act upon it?
Well, if I look at the scenario, I think the war has entered the second phase, which is more dangerous, of a no return. And that makes it more dangerous, because if the Americans carry out with the attack with the Israelis on the civilian infrastructure after they have obliterated many of the military infrastructure in Iran, then Iranian definitely will retaliate by attacking American interests in the region. Name it 13 companies, which is the giant company of the technical companies and artificial intelligence, where the United States is investing billions of dollars in this industry because they wanted to take and stay in the lead, not leave it to the China. So therefore, if Iran carries out with these sort of an attack, then I don't think the United States will be in any position not to use a non-conventional way of ending this war with the Iranian, because Iran is very adamant, and they said you started this illegal, illegitimate, and a violation of all international law, this war, and we will end it in our terms and condition. And I think the Iranians still sticking to this point. However, some of the messages keep coming to us from the United States and Iran that there is some sort of kind of a talk, direct talk between the two sides. That could be, could be some sort of a ceasefire. But for me, as I'm a West Asian expert and I belong to this region, I'm expecting a surprise from the President of the United States. And this surprise could be a major sort of an attack on Iran, which then he will declare that it is now America achieved its goal and they're out. Because if you look, Siddhartha, at the Iranian, the Strait of Hormuz was never closed before. It was only closed after the American attack. So America shifting its goal from the nuclear rhetoric into the Strait of Hormuz, where it was already open. So I think that the quagmire of the war will continue for some time.
The war will continue for some time, but if you're actually saying,
add one thing.
If you're actually saying, I'll come back to you, Mr. Jha, but what you're actually saying, Dr. Awwad, is that within the next 10 hours or so, before Trump makes that announcement or that speech, America could attempt something drastic, which Trump can sell to his people eventually during that address as a victory that perhaps ends up resulting in some kind of a concession made from Iran. We'll have to wait and see as to how things unfold there. But Mr. Pushkarna, coming to you, you're in the middle of it all in a certain sense, because the Middle East has been bearing the brunt of what's been happening, including Iran's own retaliation, which has now decided to, of course, engage in a horizontal warfare. It was vertically attacked by Israel as well as the United States, but Iran in turn has decided to expand the theater of war by targeting America's own allies in the Middle East, including the UAE as well. You're in the center of it all. What's your apprehension going forward? And are you expecting Iran, or do you think Iran will act upon its threat? And what do you expect Trump to say in less than 12 hours from now?
So thank you, Siddhartha, for having me over. Coming from a food and beverage perspective, FMCG, the core of food safety parameters, looking at how this whole thing is unveiling, I think the biggest, the ones who are losing out the most are companies, small, medium companies, startups who looked at the Middle East as one of the most safest havens to come in. Now, there are statements coming that, what can Iran do with a BB gun and so on and so forth.
Correct.
I mean, if you look at it right now, the impact which has come in UAE, Kuwait, they might be intercepted missiles. Just a few days back, you had talked about a drone getting intercepted in Abu Dhabi and, a bystander getting killed. It brings in a negative sentiments in the business, in the whole community. And even though people are keeping, put in Middle East, Dubai is reaching out, it's doing all that it can to, calm everybody's nerves in terms of corporate is concerned. But it's the fundamental, of the whole economy which is getting shaken by these side wars.
Correct.
Now, he can talk about, that it doesn't have a nuclear weapon. Okay, but you don't need a nuclear weapon. You only need like 5 drones going in Heart, DIFC or somewhere. And we have faced it, having looked at a base for the Middle East, for the years of work Middle East has done in setting up relations with all over the world, creating a nest of, a security nest of, nothing can impact it from being so jittery that with
Absolutely, and it's not just military infrastructure or purely American military assets that have been struck in the Middle East. Civilian infrastructure has also borne a good amount of damage as well. Mr. Jha, coming back to you, I want to speak to you specifically about the threat that the IRGC has now decided to issue, and that deadline ends in about 3 hours, which is that they'll target American companies in the Middle East with valuations close to that of certain continents, if I may put it that way. And the Iranians know to hurt the global economy where it hurts the most. What do you think is going to be America's response to this big threat coming from the IRGC, and can that threat be dismissed out of hand and taken lightly?
Well, I always say that never take your opponent for granted, because as my favorite statement is, you cannot predict the unpredictability of stupidity. So this attack on the civilian companies will be the most stupid act IRGC will or Iran will do.
Okay.
Because it will completely change 9 hours later what President Trump will have to announce. So if these American companies or global companies are hit by IRGC as a threat, preceding Mr. Trump's public statement that is coming, addressed to the nation and addressed to the world, then the speech will be very different, consequences will be very different.
Okay.
But if Iran is willing to demolish these entities, Iran must not forget that they are dependent on these countries to be in 21st century. This is very important. They are also using the same technologies that you and I are using, or whatever is being used, all the satellites and everything else. So if these companies pull back today, shut down their operations in the Gulf region, guess what is happening? It is total darkness in those areas. And Trump will not have to drop a single bomb to take that region to Stone Age. It will go into a dark age automatically.
I'll take this across to our other two guests as well. We're actually short of time on this debate. Very quickly, Dr. Awwad, I want to talk to you specifically about the internal dynamics within Iran, because that particular threat has been issued by the Iran Revolutionary Guard Corps. It's not come directly from Mr. Pezeshkian. Who's controlling whom in Iran? Because it appears that Dr. Trump was alluding to Pezeshkian in that Truth Social comment that he just made a short while back about negotiations and the call for a ceasefire. But who's calling the shots? And will the IRGC act on its threat of attacking American firms in the Middle East?
Well, I think the IRGC have already issued a statement ridiculing President Trump's statement, or that the president of Iran has approached them for an immediate ceasefire. So therefore, I think the rhetoric between the two sides, may will continue for some time, because they will not be able to finish till we understand what both the sides are up to. If the United States carried out with their own threat and the United States president does not stop this war, then I think it is, as I said, we are entering a phase of no return. So the war will continue. Iran will also do will honor their own word, and they will destroy whatever in their reach, including all these American companies. And I think the war will go beyond control.
Okay. And Mr. Pushkarna, last word from you. The next 12 hours are extremely critical, including the 3.5 hours leading up to 10 p.m. When that Iranian deadline ends, what's your hope? Final question.
My hope is that sense prevails in both for humanity, and we at least look at some kind of ceasefire so that people can come on the table and talk. The big question is who's controlling the IRGC, like you say, and I hope, sense prevails.
Extremely delicate 12 hours remaining, 3.5 hours to go before that Iranian deadline, and then, of course, Trump's address at 6:30 a.m. India time tomorrow. Many thanks to each of our guests for weighing in on this very important debate indeed. We'll wait and see as to what happens.